Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the 10th of September, which worldwide, as we know, is World Suicide Prevention Day. And when it comes to suicide, I'm afraid that most of us do not know and wouldn't know how to respond if a loved one or somebody you care about, a relative, comes up and says to you, I feel like ending it all. I feel like finishing my life. I feel that there is no need for me to continue living. In most of the cases, the knee-jerk response, which our culture teaches us, is you shouldn't talk like this. These are negative thoughts and we should not give into negative thoughts. Why don't you compare yourself to people who are more unfortunate than you? Right? In an attempt to start this debate and win the debate against suicide. But as it has been seen over so many years, and with the experience of so many experts, none of these things are actually helpful. Rather, they increase the person's frustration and the feeling that he is not being heard or understood. And that it will be very difficult for him to get any kind of help in this situation, and the hopelessness further increases. Now, what drives a person to this kind of a point where they say that I don't feel like living? There can be n number of reasons, and those reasons can range from financial issues, relationship troubles, a sense of hopelessness, maybe even clinical depression, probably some other mental illness wherein a person is suffering from delusional feelings or maybe going through a certain mindset where he feels helpless or is in deep mental anguish and pain. Many a times it is seen that suicide is seen as a means to end that particular pain and not the act itself having any value. When unfortunately we see such things happening around us, we see societies, people in power, people in position to make a change, many a times offering some of the most irritatingly unuseful proposals and solutions. One should try to understand that we live in a country where we have so many opportunities for growth, where so many things need to be done in a better way, and where opportunities can be created in every field for doing things a notch better. One of those very important things is mental health. And as I shared with you at the beginning of this talk, whenever somebody shares this one idea going through their minds that I don't feel that life is worth living, we find ourselves unprepared for it. And we respond in a way and manner which is actually counterproductive to de-escalating that situation. So what should we do? Supposing you are not trained in any mental health intervention, but you find a friend or a loved one, a relative, somebody confiding in you, and it has been shown through so many researches that for every completed suicide, the person in question has shared those ideas with at least 5 to 7 people who they found, who they could talk to. And mostly, instead of doing the one thing which could have saved that life, mostly people tried to engage in a conversation which made that person who completes the suicide feel not understood. So what should we do when somebody says that I am feeling this? Repeated thought of ending my life. The first thing is validate that emotion. Say yes, I may not be able to understand it, but yes, it is possible that this thought could be there. And then gently ask, do you know clearly why you are having this thought? If the person feels confident enough to share that with you, that is a very good step. But in certain cases, the person may express a complete inability and no concrete reason for this thought going through their mind. And this thought, as I said earlier, could be because the person has been going through a depressive phase, or a delusional phase, or a psychotic breakdown. So many mental health conditions in which your actions and your judgment can be very deeply affected. If the person shares a particular reason with you, or if the person says, I am unable to share a reason or a particular cause for this, what should your next step be? As somebody who wants the best for that person, offer to give the person access to a mental health professional. Normalize the conversation with things like, yes, it can happen to people, normal people, at some point in time. It does not make you an outcast. It does not make you somebody with unacceptable emotions. No, this can happen to very normal people at some point in life. And what should we do? The first thing, as I said, offer to simplify the process, ease the process, support the process, normalize the process of asking for help from a professional. Come, let me book you an appointment. Come, I will go with you to see a psychiatrist. This seems, and please do take every expression of a suicidal intent very seriously. I have heard the word attention seeking so many times in this context, as if attention seeking by itself was the only motive for a person expressing suicidal ideas. And since it was attention seeking, we need to give no credence to the person's expression of this emotion. I understand. Maybe the need for seeking attention at that point may not be valid in your eyes. But the threat of a life going into danger is very real. And what can we do? Again, when such a thing happens, is not to invalidate, not to say, let's not think like this, let's talk about something else, don't say this, it makes me feel bad. But rather, okay, it can happen. Good people going through a certain difficult phase in time can feel like this. Normal people with absolutely no reason to feel like this can have this feeling, and it's perfectly normal. Now, who can help? And why should we seek help? As I said, every completed suicide, from the statistics which we have gathered over the past few years and especially after the COVID era, every time this person has shared that intent, has shared that idea with at least 5 to 7 people, and then once the act is completed, many a times those people are left with nothing but regret. I wish when he had said that, when she had said that, I wish I could have done something. And understand, it's perfectly normal for the person in that particular situation to not want to have help, to show some resistance, to knock down the idea of seeing a specialist, to say things like, I'm not going to a psychiatrist, I am not crazy. What do we say? How do we make it easier? We say that yes, I know you are not crazy. Of course, every normal person during some phase in life can have this kind of a feeling, but I worry about you. I care for you. And for my satisfaction, just so that we can get the real deal from an expert about how to come out of this, let's go see a psychiatrist. Let's see a professional. A suicidal intent, expression of it, talking about it, sharing that feeling with somebody is a red flag in every circumstance. Do not reject the idea that the person will not complete it based on your own assessment. At that point in time, things could deteriorate. There could be one additional stressor which pushes the person over the edge. There can be an impulsive act simply because the means of completing it are available on hand. I'm talking about having availability to firearms. It has been seen that many a times people serving in the armed forces, people serving in certain security services where they have access to firearm, such acts become easier to complete. And men, unfortunately, are more prone to use very violent and very definitive means of going ahead with a suicidal plan. The time to intervene is when anybody shares it or when you sense that there might be a certain idea going around in their head which is very uncomfortable to talk about. Never think that I may put the idea of suicide into somebody's head even when they may not be contemplating it. It's perfectly okay. I, as a professional, on a daily basis, ask a lot of people, are you thinking or does this idea come into your head that life is not worth living and it would be better for you if your life ends? Trust me, the person who has that idea already has thought about a lot of ways, means, plans, reasons of finishing their life. You will not be putting a new idea into their head. Somebody going through stress might already have thought about it and will actually thank you for breaking the ice, for making the conversation easier for them. Never shy away from asking a person who seems in that kind of a condition, are you all right? One very disturbing fact which I heard and gathered from the very recent spate of suicides amongst IIT and NEET aspirants in Kota was that people were taking side bets on who might be the next person to complete a suicide. And it is very disturbing because in the long run, humanity has always progressed because of cooperation of people, of a group of people. But this unhealthy competition has robbed us of even our humanity, of this empathy, of this value of human life, where people might actually be betting on somebody killing themselves because of the signs they see and not taking that step where a life can actually be saved. According to the WHO, suicide is one of the major preventable causes of death amongst the young, and it is every one of us, all of us who consider ourselves as good human beings, to look out for such signs and not shy away from broaching the topic with people who seem vulnerable. At the same time, mental health is no longer a taboo topic. In the 1980s, when HIV/AIDS came along, it gave us a gift. We started talking about human sexuality, about sexual relationships, and most importantly, about safe sex practices. Until that time, sexuality was something our culture wasn't comfortable with. We never talked about it. But after the HIV onslaught, thankfully, we started talking about it. And today, we are sitting at a stage where having HIV is no longer a death sentence, where you can have a normal life even after being diagnosed HIV positive. Similarly, after the COVID pandemic, a lot of people have been put under undue stress. Families have been put under a lot of unwanted stress, and we will keep seeing the effects of the COVID pandemic over the next several years, maybe even a decade. And one of those very severe complications of COVID, of long COVID many a times, and the times and the challenges which COVID has produced, we will see more and more people, unfortunately, dying young because of suicide. And as I said earlier, it is absolutely preventable. Talk about it. Normalize seeing a specialist. Consider any thought, any action, anything related to a suicide as a red flag requiring immediate medical attention. And as a good citizen, and as somebody who can actually save a life, make the process easier for taking that person to see a psychiatrist, talk about his feelings, and get out of that temporary situation in which they find themselves helpless, with killing themselves as the only way out of that situation. I'm sure, as responsible adults, as responsible citizens, a lot of people will understand that they can make a difference in terms of better mental health for the society by normalizing certain conversations, by making it easier to talk about feelings, by making it especially rewarding to take such people to the specialist and seeing a life being saved. Today is the 10th of September, World Suicide Prevention Day. Thank you all for joining in and listening to this. We'll see you soon.